lost, something would happen.
Play all this scroll.
Oh, man, I'm sorry. Good afternoon or good evening. I'd like to welcome all of you to our regular meeting of the Stillwater Planning Commission of May 15th, 2018. I'll call this meeting to order. Our first item for business is land use items for discussion and possible action. Stillwater Delta Tau Delta Corporation, map amendment MA 18-03. Requesting review and approval to rezone property addressed as 1306 West University Avenue from RTM, residential two-family multifamily, to RMI, residential multifamily intermediate zoning. Good evening.
Good evening. Thank you. Lance Gross with Development Services. The Delta Tau Delta fraternity has submitted a map amendment for the following location. The purple boundary indicates the subject site. They're requesting to rezone the property from RTM, residential two-family multifamily, to RMI, residential multifamily intermediate. RSS exists to the north of this site, residential single-family small lot. RTM is to the west. RMI is to the east, and RMI is also to the south. This is a view looking to the northwest, and you can see the single-story structure in the front and the two-story structure in the rear. This is another view looking to the northeast. You can see the parking lot in the front and the existing structure over here. The findings for this, the C3 plan anticipates that the university will eventually expand into the vicinity. Until and unless that occurs, university supporting uses are appropriate. RTM allows for 20 units per acre and a 35-foot height. RMI, which is what they're proposing, allows for 30 units per acre and a 50-foot height. This proposed rezoning is adjacent to higher intensity uses. And be happy to answer any questions, and keep in mind that the applicant's representative is in the audience, and we'll be able to answer questions as well.
Questions? Just, you know, the last few times we've had the houses coming to us, it's been an issue with regard to parking. So is that part of it at this point? Does that change between these two, whether requirements in terms of amount of parking they need to have, or is it just based upon the density of the building that they're going to put on that thing?
Let's see.
If and when that actually happens.
Yeah, that's a good question. I believe the applicant can probably answer that question.
Okay. Well, then we can just wait until, are you going to come up during the public speaking period? All right, we'll do that. Are there any other questions? There being none, I will open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward, give your name and address for the record.
I'm Joe Millar, 3005 West 33rd Avenue here in Stillwater. I'm the treasurer of the house corporation that owns the house. What we're looking at doing is we currently have a two-story building, and we want to go to a three-story building. Reduce it. Well, we have 85 parking spaces. At most, we would lose 2 or 3 at most, if not adding some more, because we're going to basically take down the we're going to take down the whole building and come up with this three-story building, maybe set back to the north 10 to 15 feet from where it is now, but the north wing will be gone totally. So the overall size of the complex will be reduced. It'll just go up 3 stories. Okay. And we need the RMI to be able to go up 3 stories.
Okay. Other questions?
Number of beds will not change. If anything, it may come down 1 or 2.
The setback requirements are a little different from zone to zone. It'll still be okay?
Yes.
Okay.
And the building is going to conform to the 50-foot height limit?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because
We just
had requested Board of Adjustments.
We could have done it. the other way, and they said we would have to have a flat roof, which I don't want to go to at all. So that's why we're asking to be able to go, the RMI to be able to go up 3 stories with a slanted roof.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the item, please step forward. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for staff alternatives.
Yes, the alternatives are accept findings as presented, recommend approval, find that the request is not appropriate and recommend denial, or table the item to a certain date.
All right. Any additional questions or discussion?
I have one for,
Yes.
in the staff report, the existing and proposed uses listed as fraternity houses. Looking at the zoning under the uses, it used the boarding house term. It doesn't use the term fraternity house, so the future use, is that going to come in under build by right, or will it be under a use permit?
For the fraternity house, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be built by right. Yes, it will be permitted.
Is that normally how they're permitted
Yes.
in Stillwater?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah, okay. I would just comment, this is not specific to this project by any means, but when a fraternal house is in a community area, this one is pretty much surrounded by uses that are mostly going to be totally consistent and non-conflicting, but in some jurisdictions, these kinds of uses are subject to a use permit because it gives the jurisdiction the ability to enforce things like hours of operations, noise levels, lighting, events, and so forth. It's a general comment that planning might want to consider, but in this case, obviously Stillwater has been coexisting with all the Seroptimus and fraternal houses, so I have no other comments.
I move we accept findings and recommend the City Council approve the proposed map amendment as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that we accept staff findings and propose for approval. We'll all vote. The motion passes 4-0. The next item for business is Epsilon Omicron Holding Corporation and Chi Omega Fraternity, map amendment MA 18-04, requesting review and approval of a map amendment to rezone properties addressed as 310 and 324 South Monroe Street from RMI, Residential Multifamily Intermediate, to RMU, Residential Multifamily Urban.
Yes. The ATO House and Chi Omega fraternities, our fraternity has joined together to submit an application for a map amendment. The purple boundary indicates the subject site. Chi Omega is located on the top of the northern half of the subject site. The ATO house is located on the southern portion. They're wishing to rezone from RMI, multifamily intermediate, to RMU, residential multifamily urban. To the north is RMU. There's an RMU PUD located right here. RMI is right here. Office zoning is located to the south, and RMI zoning is located to the west. This is a view looking to the northwest at the ATO house from 4th Avenue and Monroe. This is a view looking to the southwest at the Chi Omega house from 3rd and Monroe. The C3 plan indicates this area for high-density residential, which would be for actually between 12 and 150 units per acre. The existing RMI allows for 30 units per acre. The proposed RMU allows for 50 units per acre. Most of the adjacent zoning is higher intensity uses. And once again, the applicant's representative is in the audience and will be able to answer some questions, but I'll be happy to try to answer some as well.
Thank you very much. I'll now open the public hearing. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward, give your name and address for the record.
Good evening, Kelly Harris with Keystone Engineering, located at 923 South Lowry, here representing both parties tonight. You had asked the parking question on the previous one. Parking's based on the use. So in this case, it would be fraternities, and that's based on number of beds, not the zoning classification.
Okay.
And so however many beds that they end up with, once they get into design, is how many parking spaces they would be required. They're fully aware of that fact. And then I think maybe you asked about setbacks. Maybe Ariel?
Yeah,
Yep.
I did.
So yeah, they're aware of the setback changes as well. And in this one, you may actually see half of the alley between the two properties have already been closed. So that may come back to close the other half as part of the design project. But overall, we were after the higher number of bed counts for these two projects.
So are both going to rebuild or just
Correct.
one?
No,
Oh, okay.
both. Yep.
Sorry, from the application, it seemed like it was just one then.
No, the ATOs are actually who we're working, the Keystone's working with design-wise, and then the Coyotes found out we were taking a rezoning application through, and so they jumped on and said, hey, we're going to do this maybe a year or so later, but let's get it all done at one time.
So each project is specific and tied to their own parcel? There's no commingling of anything?
Correct.
Other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else wishing to speak in favor of the item, please step forward and give your name and address for the record. Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the item, please step forward, give your name and address for the record. There being none, I'll close the public hearing and ask for staff alternatives.
The alternatives are accept the findings as presented and recommend approval, find that the request is not appropriate and recommend denial, or table the item to a certain date.
Okay. Discussion. Or
I move to accept findings and recommend the city council approve the proposed map amendment as presented.
Second.
we will now vote. The motion to accept staff findings and approve 4-0. The next item on the agenda is the approval meeting summary for discussion and possible action, the regular meeting of May 1st, 2018.
Move to approve.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded that we approve the minutes of May 1st. The motion passes 4-0. Our next Planning Commission meeting will be on June 5th, 2018. Motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we adjourn. The motion passes 4-0. Thank you all very much for being here.